welcome to this channel, which is devoted to a reading and better understanding of the book Ascent of Mount Carmel by St. John of the Cross. In the last chapter, St. John introduced us to supernatural apprehensions of the memory. In this chapter, he also refers to them as spiritual apprehensions of the memory, but please note that both of these things are really the same thing. As you recall, natural and imaginary apprehensions of the memory are related to the bodily senses and the fancy. However, spiritual apprehensions of the memory are different. They're not related to the bodily senses. And because of this, St. John tells us that he was a bit tentative in classifying supernatural apprehensions of the memory in the same category as the other two. But he tells us that, on the other hand, that all three types of apprehensions of the memory come to us via our spiritual memories and reminiscing. While we shouldn't hold on to our natural or imaginary apprehensions of the memory, St. John tells us that it's actually a good thing to recall supernatural apprehensions of the memory if they produce light, love, and joy and spiritual renewal. We may recall them, though not dwell on them, as often as we want, with the goal of renewing our love for God. But after recalling one of these memories, as we begin to contemplate on God, we should then stop dwelling upon the memory. St. John tells us that this is not the effigy and image that the apprehension has left in the bodily sense. These apprehensions don't have any form or image, and we recall them intellectually and spiritually by means of a formal or spiritual form or notion or image that was impressed supernaturally upon the soul. In the 26th chapter of the second book, St. John discussed revelations of the knowledge of God, which is also called cardionosis. Our installment on that chapter is linked below. As you recall, those revelations that we discussed in that chapter are a part of divine union. And the advice St. John gave us in regard to how we should conduct ourselves with that phenomenon equally apply to spiritual or supernatural apprehensions of the memory. And that's because these two are a part of divine union. These apprehensions don't come from the creatures of God. We don't learn them from the creatures of God, but they are imparted by God directly to the soul. And we shouldn't expect to experience them unless we're very advanced. There are two ways to know whether our memories are these types of supernatural apprehensions of the memory and not imaginary apprehensions of the memory. And those are, if we look back on them and they result in light, love, and joy and spiritual renewal, they may be supernatural apprehensions of memory. We will also be easily able to differentiate these from the imaginary apprehensions of the memory that are stored in our fancy. He that has experienced these will readily distinguish the one kind from the other, for the great difference between them is very clear to anyone that has experienced them. If in looking back on a spiritual memory, and you don't have both of those points that we just discussed, you should just move on and don't look back on the memory any longer. These apprehensions produce touches and impressions of union with God, which is the aim toward which we are directing the soul. By no form, image, or figure which can be impressed upon the soul does the memory recall these. For these touches and impressions of union with the Creator have no form, but only the effects which they have produced upon it of light, love, joy, and spiritual renewal, and so forth, some of which are wrought anew in the soul whenever they are remembered. Well, thank you for watching this installment. I hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back again in about a week with another one, but in the meantime, please pray for the church.
Many's the time that we feasted,
and many's the time that we fasted.
Oh, well, it was swell while it lasted. We did have fun and no harm done. So thanks for the memories